Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Beyond Blood Sugar podcast. I'm so glad you are joining me today. I feel better than the last episode that I recorded last week. I was amidst being sick and having allergies, and now it's just a little bit into the allergies part. So, anyway, in the last episode, we started talking about what's really happening inside the midlife body and how it isn't just aging. It's partially the result of deeper metabolic shifts that no one really teaches us about. So today we're going to take that foundation even deeper because your metabolism sets the stage, but your hormones are the one carrying out the plan. Okay. If the environment they're responding to is chaotic, blood sugar swings, high insulin, poor recovery, then of course the symptoms you're feeling start to pile up. As I'm sure when a lot of women hit midlife and start noticing some changes, whether they're major or subtle, things like, weight gain, mood swings, fatigue, joint pain. The story they hear is simple. This is just aging, or your hormones are out of control and just deal with it because this is what it's going to be for the rest of your life. Okay. But that kind of misses the mark, like completely, because hormones aren't controllers per se. They don't just randomly decide what your body does. Hormones are responders. They reflect the environment inside your body and they adjust based on signals they're receiving, not by choice, but by necessity. It's like a biological traffic control center. Your body's asking, do we have enough fuel? Are we under threat? Are we stable enough to build, repair, and reproduce? Although the reproduce one's a little bit less pertinent for those of us in midlife, but for some it still is. And, do we need to downshift into survival mode? And based on the answers to these, your hormones adjust. If your body senses plenty of energy, stable blood sugar, low stress, strong recovery, your hormones send growth, repair, and resilience signals. If your body senses chaos, like unstable blood sugars, uh, nutrient shortages, high stress, inflammation, sleep disruption, it's all cyclical in case you haven't noticed by now, right? But your hormones shift then into survival adaptation, conserve resources, slow metabolism, prioritize short term survival over long term health. It's not random, and it's actually quite intelligent. The hormone symptoms you're feeling in midlife, we're feeling in midlife, whether it's, crazy cycles, restless sleep, intense cravings, weight gain, aren't because the body is just suddenly betraying us. Menopause is real. Perimenopause is real. Hormonal shifts are real. But how intensely you feel those changes and how well your body adapts to them depends heavily on the environment that you're living in. Hormones don't create chaos on their own, they magnify whatever signals have been building for years. Okay. And this is critical to understand and to reiterate. Hormones don't misbehave without cause. They mirror the environment that you're living in. So if the environment is dysregulated, the hormones might be too. If the environment stabilizes, the hormones can stabilize too. This is why chasing individual hormones, trying to quote fix estrogen or thyroid or cortisol one at a time doesn't always work, especially long term. I mean, it certainly can for some things and some conditions, but we're talking in general here. So until you shift the environment that they're responding to, the same patterns will keep repeating. And midlife isn't just about missing hormones. It's about the body adapting to a history of inputs and finally reaching a point where the old compensations no longer hold. Okay. Because if hormones are responders, the real question isn't which hormone do I fix? It's what signals is my body responding to? And how do I shift those signals at the source? And when you zoom all the way out across metabolism, hormones, inflammation, energy, cravings, there's one signal that sits at the center of all of it. Can you guess what that is? It's my favorite thing to talk about. Insulin, right? So if we're serious about stabilizing the environment that your hormones are responding to, we have to start here. Not with estrogen, not with cortisol, not even with thyroid. It's insulin that shapes the entire hormonal landscape because insulin isn't just about blood sugar. It's not just about avoiding diabetes. Insulin is the hormonal architect of your entire metabolic system. It decides whether your body stores or burns fuel, whether you build or break down muscle, whether you maintain energy or crash mid afternoon, whether your inflammatory pathways stay quiet or they fire up, and importantly, how your other hormones behave in response. Okay. When insulin is stable and quiet, your body can prioritize maintenance, repair, balance. When insulin is chronically elevated, even elevated at lower levels, but still elevated, even when your labs look normal, your entire hormonal environment shifts towards survival. What does that look like? Well, um, estrogen metabolism slows down, so you don't clear estrogen effectively, leading to, heavier periods, mood swings, things like that. Progesterone production drops, so that can leave you with not very restful sleep, emotional reactivity, say it nicely, uh, less hormonal resilience overall. What's another one? Thyroid signals can weaken, so your metabolism can slow down. Testosterone can swing. So some women see low energy, muscle loss. Others experience higher androgen effects like belly fat, chin hair. Another one is cortisol can remain elevated, making your body more insulin resistant and kind of locking you into that stress, fatigue, craving cycle. So if insulin is sending the wrong messages like store, conserve, stay on high alert, then no amount of hormonal patchwork underneath will create real stability. And this is why so many women in midlife feel like they're doing all the things, but nothing is really moving, or maybe it once was, but it no longer is because their foundational metabolic signal, insulin, is still shouting over the top of everything else. And the twist, you can have absolutely normal blood sugar numbers on a basic lab report and still have high insulin underneath. So frustrating that they don't test insulin, but your fasting blood sugar can be totally normal and you can have high insulin because the early stage insulin resistance doesn't show up on things like fasting glucose or even A1C. It starts with subtle shifts long before diabetes is even on the table. Diagnosable anyway. It's clearly on the table. It's why the fatigue, the brain fog, the belly fat, the cravings, the sleep issues are not random. They're not just aging. They're insulin driven responses, whether or not anyone's ever explained it that way before. So if you want midlife to feel different, this is the starting point. Not fixing every hormone separately, not stacking on another supplement, not tightening the rules even harder. The work is to quiet the metabolic chaos at the source, and it starts with insulin. Now, if insulin is the signal shaping your entire hormonal environment, then the next question is probably obvious. Next two questions, actually. What makes insulin louder and what makes it quieter? What calms it? Because insulin doesn't just randomly rise and fall on its own. It's responding to the total environment that your body is living in. And that environment gets shaped every single day by what you eat, how you move, how you rest, how you respond to stress. And again, all of this is cyclical, right? They all like feed off of each other. So when insulin is running high, even with normal blood sugar, it's usually because of like a slow stacking effect of things like, erratic blood sugar from maybe inconsistent ways of eating or eating in a way that doesn't best serve your ever-changing body because our bodies are changing, or chronic low-grade stress that never fully shuts off, loss of muscle, making your body less able to clear blood sugar effectively, poor sleep, micronutrient depletion, especially things like magnesium, chromium, potassium, hidden inflammation, often from, gut issues, toxin exposures, which we've talked about, strain on the immune system. And you don't need to have like every one of these for insulin to start to creep up. even a few layered together over years, can start quietly shifting the whole system. Stabilizing insulin is about consistently sending signals of safety. And I'm talking about it in a different way because it's insulin is not generally talked about this way. But these quiet safety signals are things like, nourishing your body with real food, enough protein and minerals, or building and maintaining muscle through regular movement and hopefully weight bearing exercises. And that weight, by the way, could be body weight. It doesn't have to be like weights that you're holding on to, or prioritizing deep, real recovery, especially sleep, or creating more steady blood sugar patterns. Because the more stability you create from the inside out, the quieter insulin becomes. And when insulin quiets down, your entire hormonal landscape starts recalibrating naturally and without needing to micromanage every single hormone. Now, this is all incredibly important because when insulin stays elevated for too long, it starts like jamming the gears that normally keep your hormones running smoothly. So let's real quick dive in a little bit deeper into what we touched on a minute ago when we were talking about insulin. So first, when it stays elevated, again, it can disrupt estrogen clearance. So instead of metabolizing and moving estrogen out of the body the way that it should, high insulin can make your body recycle old estrogen, leading to, as we talked about, heavier periods, unpredictable cycles, worsening PMS, being more sensitive to hormone fluctuations. Second, it blunts progesterone production. Progesterone is your calming, stabilizing hormone, right? Helps you sleep, regulates your mood, the good one, keeps your cycle smooth. But when insulin resistance is in play, your body starts prioritizing cortisol production over progesterone. This is so important to understand. And suddenly you're anxious, you're wired at night, you're restless, you're feeling like you can't relax even when you're tired. This is the one that I experience the most. If I'm going to experience any of these that I'm talking about, this is the one that shows up the most for me. So third, it can shift your androgens. When insulin's running high, it can push your body toward making more testosterone-like hormones, which you might not see again on a lab report. And a lot of times, doctors for women aren't testing these kind of things anyway, and they should be. But even if it's not showing up, you're feeling it through, your chin's breaking out, your hair's thinning, stronger cravings, body that's more prone to belly fat. Another one is, again, interfering with thyroid sensitivity. So even if your thyroid hormones are in range, insulin resistance can make your cells less responsive to them. So again, slower metabolism, energy dips, your body can become more resistant to fat loss, even though technically your numbers are fine on paper. And finally, cortisol that keeps cortisol going. Okay, high insulin, poor blood sugar control, chronic low-grade stress, all kind of gang up to keep cortisol dripping into your system. And over time, it leads to deeper fatigue, slower recovery, and a nervous system that just feels fried, even if you're trying to be healthy, right? None of this happens in isolation. I mean, it can, but it usually doesn't. It's all layered. Even small disruption amplifies the next thing. And because women's hormonal systems are so interconnected, it doesn't take much for the whole feedback loop to start spiraling. So when midlife hits, when estrogen starts naturally declining, and you've already got insulin quietly driving these changes underneath, that's when everything starts feeling louder. Symptoms, I should say, that used to be kind of in the background, like creating this background noise, suddenly move front and center. But here's the real turning point. You're not stuck with this. This cycle isn't set in stone. You actually have the power to send new signals and completely change how your hormones respond. So let's get into that briefly and just break it down. When insulin's high, it forces your body into survival mode, right? Fat storage, blood sugar emergencies, and inflammation kind of take priority over balance, repair, and resilience. Okay, we got that, right? But when you stabilize insulin, the hierarchy can reorder itself. And what that might look like is cellular sensitivity returns. So instead of ignoring insulin and ignoring thyroid signals, your cells start listening again. Energy production improves, recovery improves, metabolism stops dragging. It can look like, progesterone production rebuilding. When insulin surges calm down, cortisol demands shrink. Your body can finally shift raw materials back towards building progesterone. Again, this is the hormone that protects your sleep and your mood and your cycles and your nervous system. We love this one. Estrogen metabolism cleans up. So high insulin creates these inflammatory estrogen metabolites, like the ones tied again to heavy cycles, breast tenderness, mood swings. So stable insulin allows the liver to favor more protective pathways, leading to smoother cycles and lighter emotional volatility. Sounds awesome, right? Let's see. Leptin and hunger hormones reset. When insulin stabilizes, leptin signals improve, which means hunger and fullness signals actually make sense again. You're not like white knuckling through cravings. Your body knows when it's had enough. And then the last one I'll talk about is inflammation. Your inflammatory load drops. Insulin is a pro-inflammatory hormone when it's chronically elevated. By quieting insulin, you quiet downstream inflammatory messengers like TNF alpha and interleukin 6. And I don't expect you to know what those are, but for those of you that do, you can geek out on those like I do. But they're big culprits behind the joint pain and the brain fog and the subtle ache of, I just don't feel like myself anymore. This is what real repair looks like. Not chasing estrogen, not forcing progesterone, not hacking cortisol, but rebuilding the environment so that every hormone has a chance to do its job without screaming for help. And that all starts by recognizing insulin as the metabolic linchpin, not just as a blood sugar regulator, but the architect of hormonal stability or chaos, right? So here's where we're going to end for today. If insulin is the signal shaping everything from hormone behavior to energy, mood, metabolism, then stabilizing insulin isn't a side project, it's the foundation. Every small improvement you make, every steady meal, every night of real sleep, every moment you pull your body out of constant urgency is incredibly impactful. It's a direct message to your hormones. We're safe now. We can rebuild and not just survive. This is the real work of midlife repair and rebuilding. And once you start shifting that signal, the changes don't just add up, they compound. Okay. So if you're ready to start applying all of this for real and not just learning about it, make sure you're on the wait list for the midlife metabolic rebuild. Okay. Because the doing is the important part. I'm going to be sharing a full roadmap soon, and I'd love for you to be a part of it. So get on the wait list. You'll hear all the stuff as it comes out. And next week, in the final episode of this little mini 3-part series, we're going to go deep, and we're going to go deep in a way we're not going to be talking about like insulin and all the stuff that we have been talking about, but we're going to be kind of looking forward. And it's really one you don't want to miss because it kind of brings this all together. Okay. So I hope to see you next week and have a great week.